Welcome to Healing for the Soul podcast, with this being season number 4, episode number 71. I am your host, Robin Stoltman, and today I have my guest, Nicoleta. I'm not even going to try to say your last name. I don't want to butcher it.
Porojanu.
Thank you. Who's a psychologist, a therapist, and an educator who is Romanian-British, and she's based in London, on the show talking about healing transgenerational trauma. And before we get started, remember every week I feature different guests to help you become the best version of yourself through different methods you may not have heard of or thought of. So let's get started, because I don't know about you, but I know transgenerational trauma exists.
Hello, Robin. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I'm so glad that you're here because I'm excited for this. So what is your
Me
specialty?
too.
Who do you like to work with?
I love to work with seekers, with happiness seekers that are looking to really transform their lives. People that are committed to their journey of self-discovery, healing, and personal growth. That's the audience I'm having at the moment.
That's a good audience to have. That includes people like me, like literally,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because it's like the person gets sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Well, I think you need to get sick and tired until you actually move and you make a decision to change something, because we get very complacent in our ways, in the way life unfolds. And sometimes we need a kick in the butt, you know how they say it.
Yes. That's why I have my husband. He
Okay.
literally he's done that for me a few times. So who or what inspired you to do this work that you do?
Oh, what a wonderful question, Robin. I feel that we do get inspired in our choices in life. Although sometimes we like to believe that we have 100% free will. I don't feel like that's the case. So, what I've learned over the years is that our life script, which is what's been assigned to us before we were born, in other words, our ancestry, because we come from somewhere, our life script has such a massive contribution to what we become in life, who we become in life. And I think it's very important for every single one of us to understand that. In my case, to give you my example, I happen to come into this family of mine, and I have gone obviously through this personal history within that family environment, which naturally shaped me and shaped many of my choices, including the choice to obviously become a psychologist, a therapist, and an educator one day. I think, if I'm honest, the defining factor for me has been set into my first 7 years of life, because I grew up with my grandparents. My parents were at work, and I had the joy of being around a very wise grandfather. He was the sage of the village, and a very mystical grandmother. She was the healer of the village. So they created for me and my older brother a very safe and stable, I would say, environment. They were very warm human beings, they were loving, and they offered us that kind of space for freedom and stability. They created a world of altruism, which is very rare to be found, really. They were focused on giving to others. That was their life mission. I think they were both united in that kind of way of looking at life. And I felt all along, living with them for my first 7 years of life, that this is what I want to be. I want to be like them. So choosing to become a psychologist was, for me, a natural progression in life. Even to this day, I cherish their memory, and they remain two of the most important mentors that I had in life. And I still feel guided by them, by their teachings, by their values, by their kindness and humanness, by their appreciation for life eventually.
I like that. That's nice, because it's like, I think my grandparents, yeah, I only got the one set of grandparents that I can kind of relate to what you're talking about. But my biological grandparents on either side, no, I can't.
I understand.
And that's good though that you had that, to growing up to help you. Because I'm thinking like one's a healer, and then one's more of the here's how to guide in life, like here's how to
Yes,
help.
yes, I was privileged. I'm thankful for that.
Very blessed.
Full of gratitude. Indeed, you're right, Robin.
So, with having your grandparents raise you, well, like you said, like in the first 7 years, is there a way to pick up like their transgenerational trauma, or is transgenerational trauma even real?
In my view, transgenerational trauma is very real. It's probably the most real experience that we have in life. It's an experience that many of us encounter. It's not isolated, it's very common based on my teachings over the years. And whether we are aware of that or not, that's another matter, because we tend to use all sorts of defense mechanisms, as you very well know as a professional yourself,
Mhm.
to avoid confronting the suffering, to postpone looking within, to keep ourselves somehow distracted and stimulated by the outside world, to keep ourselves busy doing something, in order to not look inside to all of this pain and trauma that we have witnessed or we've been part of ourselves, or we just hear about. It's the trauma of the humanity in a way or another, shaped in little experiences, shaped in little stories. So, to again come back to my own experience, after these 7 years of life, which have been spent in safety, I would say, in freedom around my grandparents, when it was time to go to school, my parents took me into the city to live with them, myself and my brother too, because they wanted us to attend a better school. And then I started to see a different kind of family dynamic. It wasn't what I witnessed in my first 7 years of life with my grandparents. There was a lot of domestic abuse. My father was an alcoholic and quite violent. My mother was codependent. She didn't really do much about what was going on. And for the following 10 years, I've been trapped in a way in that kind of life until I was ready to move out of the family home. And I absorbed a lot of trauma. And this was my lived trauma. So the trauma that I could see with my own eyes. But now, if I look back from the perspective of a psychologist, a professional, if I look back, I can realize that trauma hasn't started with my grandparents or with myself. After so many studies and qualifying as a therapist and counselor and doing work with different clients over the years, about 49 nationalities, I have noticed that this is not a unique experience common to me or my culture. It actually happens everywhere and with everyone. So my trauma started long before I was born. That's why I say that our life script has started to be written before we were born, because my father and mother didn't just become like that. Something
No.
shaped them, and they have been affected by the trauma that their parents have experienced. Their ancestors have been through, and that's been passed on to them through this evolutionary memory, sometimes even through genetic memory or even karmic memory. So it's reignited in the actions that people carry on doing because they learn from all of the others. In fact, if we are to be honest, I'm hearing over the past decade or so from the new biology, which is the science of epigenetics. It tells us that our our genes, our DNA inside our cells remember our ancestors' ways for 11 generations back. So in
That's a
our
lot of
DNA,
generations.
it is, yeah. That's how it remembers how they look. So obviously, we get their eyes, we get their skin, we get
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, it remembers their thinking, their behaviors, their way of being. So this is how transgenerational trauma travels through generations. Sometimes through genetics, other times through ways of behaving and thinking, which become obviously instilled in the new generation, in the children, uh, in time. And of course, it's about the drives and the instincts that come with all the package. It's not just genetic imprint, yeah. And it continues to be transferred unless we awaken and we start our journey within, so we can discover ourselves, so we can understand ourselves, our ways. Then we can heal and grow as human beings into the people that we want to be.
That's awesome. I was just like thinking to myself about for one side of my family, because I know my name before I got adopted. I still have my mom that gave birth to me. But I mean, like, her will be my stepdad, but he adopted me when I was 14. And I got to thinking, I wonder if on my biological side, on my dad's side, given his last name is Lasik, that he is, I know it's Polish.
Right.
So I'm wondering, just crazy thought I just had out of the blue, was I'm wondering if when I did past life regression, because I've done that before, I wonder if that's the memory that I had from like World War II for being gassed to death. Because I remember that. And I was like, I'm 36. There's no way I've ever been in a gas chamber. I mean, like, but it's like that was like another family member or something that went through that experience is what I was thinking. So then I got thinking, like, with everything you just said, for like how it carries like in the DNA or it can be transferred. I kind of wonder if where that's why the past life regression would work is like
Mm.
on that cellular level, that it's still being carried down from all my relatives that went through that.
Mm.
Because
It is
I don't know if
possible.
any of them
Mm.
actually escaped, when they moved here. I don't know any of that stuff. But now it's
Right.
like, I wonder if a relative was there and it somehow gets transferred. But it's kind of interesting.
It could have been. It's important to really find your ancestry, to understand your ancestry. So start digging, asking questions, talking to people that are still alive, maybe relatives from abroad. You never know what you discover. And I think it's part of you. So it's better for you to come in touch with that part of you. That will help you to understand yourself much better. There's no doubt about it.
And I agree with you because that's really making me think now. Like I said, that's why it's like out of the blue. I'm just like, I wonder if that's where I could pick that up from. Just like, because I know like the money issues that I've experienced, I know I'm like, I know 100% that come from my grandpa because
Right?
he was alive during the Great Depression. And then people think that that's, that the money issues that they have now
Yes.
didn't come from the Great Depression. I'm like, yes, it did. Think about it. If you have a relative in the US that experienced the Great Depression, yes, you did. And World War II affected you if you were here.
Mm.
Like all of that's going to affect you into
Yes.
now because they were all hoarding on to their money, holding on to it, didn't
Of
want to let it
course.
go.
Of
So that
course.
doesn't allow you to experience more of it.
Yes,
And
there's
that's
no
what's very
abundance
exciting.
unless you're open to it. Yes, and you let it go somehow. Yes.
Yeah. So, what is the 360-degree life makeover program that you offer?
Oh, thank you for asking this. This is actually my signature program. It is capturing all my personal, social, and professional life experience into a 12 weeks package, which I do live online, either one to one with people that want a more private experience or as a group coaching. It's a beautiful program. It is designed to help us unpack our past really and look close into all aspects of our lives, rather than starting to work on pieces like the therapy is doing right now.
Mhm.
Um, and let me explain how I got to this point where I actually developed this, because this 360-degree life makeover is not just a happening, it's not just something that has happened overnight. I am a survivor naturally of childhood trauma. As I mentioned, I've been through some domestic abuse, and then I survived triple negative breast cancer. As a human being, uh, you would assume that I've been through some relationship challenges, because you can't go through life without being a little bit scarred and wounded. I was programmed as a high achiever as well. So I suffered a lot with perfectionism and workaholism, just like you, as you mentioned. And
Mhm.
of course, I struggled all my life to understand myself, to really understand myself and to heal. And in time, after I graduated psychology, obviously I wanted to study a bit more. So I enrolled in all sorts of training in psychotherapy, in counseling, different other affiliated disciplines, searching for that tool, for that intervention that would really help me heal my heart. But despite the fact that I studied for so many years, for about 15 years, I've been in university studying psychology and psychotherapy, I still did not find it. So I didn't know if it's something wrong with me, with my capacity of understanding, or there is something missing. I mean, I could say that every training I've done, every course has been fantastic. I've learned a lot from every single one of them, and every therapeutic modality you consider, it's very helpful in itself. Yeah,
Mhm.
but none of them is able to actually work with everyone and resolve every problem. That's the thing.
True.
So you will have to change your practitioners all the time, move from one to the other. You hear that CBT is working with this, then you hear that EFT is working with that. So how are you going to make sense of your life if you never get a chance to establish a robust therapeutic relationship with someone? And as much as I try to train myself in most of the modalities, still there was something missing. I couldn't really figure out what it was. But I started to integrate. The more I trained, the more I integrated different approaches. And that
Yes.
worked a little bit better. And working in a holistic way and looking beyond the medical model, stopping to evaluate, diagnose, and create a treatment plan, and split the world into, healthy people or mentally ill people, which I didn't like. And I found to be quite untrue in a way, because that's not a true reflection of who we are. We are much more than that. So
True.
changing all of this has started to bring me closer to a sense of understanding. But there was still a long way to go, because I couldn't move from understanding into healing. There was no way I could just make the jump like that. And I couldn't find that missing link. So even in my personal therapy, as I was working with different practitioners myself, I kept changing them, because none of them could actually see the big picture that I was trying to explain. I'm seeing myself, and they couldn't help me make sense of my life in its wholeness. So we were working on different things, like one would be specialized in this, the other one would specialize in the other bit. But when I had questions about something different, like work, career, or I don't know, relationship with your parents, or with friends, or I don't know, the way you relate to the world, spirituality, your faith, religion, even, what do you make of politics or the economy? How is everything affecting you? Or even tapping into more heavier topics like social injustice, that we all know it's real because we see it, and how the wealth is distributed in the world, and so on. They wouldn't be able to really move into the direction that I wanted to move my inquiry. So I found it very, very difficult. And then I was left with all sorts of existential questions. Why was I hurt? Why were my parents like that? I mean, why are people mean? What is the purpose of life anyway? Why do we suffer in life? And I found it very difficult to find answers within the psychology world, within the scientific world. So eventually, helped by all of these studies, by all my experience that I captured through my practitioner research, because I was researching in my practice and trying to look for patterns and ways of understanding the mass of people, not just one individual. And then through my own personal therapy, I've realized that something emerged, something emerged in a way that helped me make sense of everything, because different aspects of our lives are so intertwined. They are very interconnected. In fact, as I allow myself to explore it in more depth, I realize that all aspects of our lives are very, very interconnected. And you can't look at one without considering the others. For example, if you
Mhm.
look at my trauma, you can take a superficial approach and think, oh, your father had a mental illness, because this is what the medical model says. Someone is alcoholic, it has an addiction, that's an illness. We treat them as we can, but there's nothing to do about it. I could see beyond that. When I considered his experience, when I found out what he's been through, it helped me really understand what shaped him the way he was. And that understanding led to a sense of acceptance that that was the case. That was my life experience. And that acceptance naturally helped me actually move through the other stages towards the healing and transformation. So I think when when we look into our life as a big picture, we realize that we can actually take each issue by itself. We need to give ourselves a 360-degree life makeover. Consider the past, how it informed the present, and how it's going to shape the future. Look into our body, check our mind, but also consider the soul. So this is how the 360-degree started to take shape. And now it's a program that is helping clients to start from scratch, from their self-discovery, to move gradually through healing, and then to personal growth. Change that kind of traumatic past into fulfillment, into happiness, into joy, and make the best of this life that we have today.
I like that. That's very helpful because, yeah, there's a lot of different aspects that a lot of the programs they do miss. And that's like, I'm not knocking psychology at all, but I know like a lot of it's focused on the past. I was like, we can't change the past. We can only change the future. But we can learn from the past,
Yes,
at the same time. But it's also finding where it was helpful for us and taking that part into the future. If that makes
absolutely.
any sense.
Hmm.
Because it is helpful, like with those patterns, to recognize them. Because like when I recognize my own patterns, I'm like, okay, I know that there's something going on. So I like that your program has that in that 12 weeks. Because 12 weeks, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. 12 weeks,
Okay.
90 days. I think it's the best gift we can give to ourselves. I think this should be offered to everyone. I'm hoping that one day, maybe through my charity, the charity that I mental health charity that I founded in London, I might be able to somehow offer it to more people, free of charge, because it does make massive changes to our lives, and it improves the quality of our life. It improves our well-being overall, and I think we deserve that. We need that, all of us. It's like seeing
Yes.
light for the first time after you've been in darkness for for a long time, and we need that kind of light to guide us through life.
Yeah, and I would agree with you because it's like when you find the one thing that does work, it just like you take and you run with it. At least for me, that's what I've done. And I've noticed other people have done the same thing. They're like, they have maybe like one or about 1 to 3 things that work for them, and then they just stick with it because it's like it works. And then when you
Yes,
get back up, then when you take it away, then you're like, what was that? Like, what was I doing? Like, what was helpful? And then you find yourself, you got to go right back to it.
yes.
So, do you have any materials on how to heal from transgenerational trauma?
Oh, of course. I have many tools available. I mean, we will develop tools as we progress in our career, because you go through different other courses. You learn from your practitioner research. You learn from life. You learn from your own experience. So, over the years, I've learned a lot from what's working and what's not working in the therapy room, in this space, very intimate space, when we try to work as two human beings, none of
Yeah.
them in a power dynamic, because we all go through the same thing. I think this is
No.
what's different with me. I don't pretend. I'm not, in that kind of role. I used to be when I was younger, because this is how I was trained. This is how I was programmed. But now I permitted myself to actually share that I come from the same place of hurt. From I live in the same world. We share. We experience life the same, and it's our lives are actually more similar than different. So my practitioner research has been the eye opener. I've learned, I think, from working with clients, about 80% of everything that I know. And the theory, the studies, and everything else has been the reading that comes with it, has been probably about 20%. And I remain very open to this type of learning, because I think it's magical. So what I've developed in time, I think the most important tool that people need is to understand how they operate, how they function, to understand their minds. So I developed a tool called the Three Entangled Minds Blueprint, which is a very short PDF that encapsulates all my learnings around the mind in a very, very easy to understand way, explained very nicely for people that don't study psychology or have nothing to do with the theories of mind, to really understand what's going on with them. And I explained there very simply that we have a programmed mind. So when we are born, we have a
Mhm.
blank brain, and then through being exposed to the world through our senses, we capture information and we wire our neurons. And when two neurons are connected, we have an alley of information. And then as we live and grow, we create a network in our brain with many neurons being connected. And that's our mind. And we continue to live automatically through our nervous system, which is automatic by its nature. We go back into those alleys of knowledge all the time, and we use them in our work, in our private life, and so on. The problem is that many of our um, uh, experiences have been of a negative nature, and they are not helpful to us. And if we continue to live from that place, it's going to be very detrimental to our well-being. So we need to allow people to understand that they are not their mind. I am not my mind. The fact that I'm hearing these thoughts now and I can talk about them, that doesn't mean I am this mind. That means that I'm the observer of my mind. So I allow people gradually through a very simple exercise, a routine that takes only 1 minute, and they can repeat throughout the day a few times for about 28 days or a month or so. They can actually rewire their brain and expand outside of that network to create their choice mind, which is the mind that is permissive and positive, and it's taking care of them. It's not hearing all that self sabotage and the negativity that comes with the 95% of the repetitive thoughts that we have,
Mhm.
80% of them being of a negative nature, as we hear from the researches. So the Three Entangled Minds blueprint allows you to actually move from this prison into the freedom gradually, and eventually embrace your free mind. It's a beautiful tool. People can actually download it from my website, from the resources page. Out there, they can also find the relationship roadmap. It's all my understanding around relationships. And I've been challenged myself on a personal level, but also in my work. I learned a lot. I have a relationship agreement, which is one page that people can read and do in their relationships. It works with intimate relationships, but also any other relationship, which talks about how do we communicate, how do we want to engage, what do we do when there is conflict? How do we deal with that? If we can't manage to escape it and resolve it, can we find a mediator that we mutually agree to help us? What if we decide to break up and go separate ways? What do we do about that? What do we do with children if there are any children, and so on? So these are very good tools to help us orientate in the world in the 4 relationship circles that I discovered, which is the relationship with myself, the relationship with the family, the relationship with the other people, the humanity, and then the relationship with the world itself, with all of these forces and systems and institutions and the universe and everything else outside. And then I have one page, Transgenerational Trauma Cycle of Pain, which is like a diagram that helps people understand where they find themselves in their healing process. And the most important one, I started touching on that
Mhm.
very little. It's the 7 steps of real transformation. This is the most magical, miraculous tool that I've discovered, and I discovered it through my own pain and suffering, not just through my work, but it's at the core of everything I do, at the core of how I live my life. It's at the core of the 360-degree life makeover program, which is an intensive 3 months, 90 days package to take you from where you are to where you realistically want to be. And it's proven to work and bring results. And it's also these 7 steps of real transformation. Is a tool that is at the core of my open-ended programs, because some people prefer to work ongoingly, week by week with me, and take it slowly into their process. Other people want a quick result and they want to
Yeah.
embark and enroll into these 3 months. Others want slow. So in short, the 7 steps of transformation start with the understanding that we mentioned about. You can't really do anything in life without understanding. You can't work, you can't do, you can't achieve, you can't have, you can't make sense of anything. So it's important to understand whatever it is that you want to work on. In our case, let's say we will work on transgenerational trauma. It is important to understand your roots, your past, your ancestry. What have they been through? 11 generations back, as much as you can trace it normally. And that will open your eyes to a lot of wisdom, to a lot of understanding around why your life unfolded the way it did. And then when you really understand, I've noticed in my own experience, there is a sense of acceptance that settles in.
No,
Without understanding, you can't accept anything. If someone comes
no.
and punches your face, you can't accept it that it happened. But if someone else explains to you that that person has a mental disorder, or they have mistaken you for someone else, or I don't know, anything, any kind of reason, then there is a sense of understanding, so you can accept that that happened. That may not necessarily be taken with happiness and joy, but at least you have a sense of acceptance. And when you accept, what I've noticed, that allows you to surrender. Surrender is a powerful experience that I think every single human being should go through. That's letting go. It's letting go what happened in the past. That's not to say that you don't care about it and you forget about it. No, 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 no. That means I let it be in the past. I don't want to keep it all the time with me here in the present, because I'm poisoning my life, this only
Hmm.
life that I'm having. So the surrender and the letting go is important, because it allows you to keep the memories alive, but not feel that emotional charge all the time. And then the surrender did something really beautiful in my life. It helped me to learn from my pain, because for a while I thought that pain comes and the suffering comes just because we have a bad destiny, or we did something wrong, or we carry something. Well, the reality is that there is meaning in our pain. We suffered because we had to use that suffering and learn the lesson that we need, so we can carry on with our making, with our purpose in life, with the meaning that we need to have in life. So that integration of learning in the step form, after understanding, acceptance, and surrender, has been absolutely life changing for me. That was the breakthrough moment, because when I really learned why I suffered, when I learned that this wasn't been given to me to make me suffer and feel bad about life, but to learn what to not do myself, to learn that there is transgenerational trauma, that helped me actually tap into forgiveness. And when you start to forgive the people that have treated you bad, when you start to when you start to forgive those that have somehow wronged you in any way, or you forgive yourself for not showing up for yourself, not being there for you, for being a little bit harsh with yourself, then, only then, after step 5, you step into step 6, which is the healing. This is when healing happens, after understanding, acceptance, surrender, learning, and forgiveness. There's no way you can heal without going through these steps. I try to bypass them, to skip them with some clients, because they didn't want to learn anything. They were not ready to surrender, and it didn't work. They struggled for years and years, and they couldn't heal. And then when you start healing, now that you've created space within you for joy and happiness, for gratitude, for appreciation, then you see the transformation happening. It's happening from the inside out. And it's only then when you actually open to happiness.
I
That's
would
been my
agree with
learning.
you. I would agree with you, and you definitely cannot miss any of the steps. Because I've been there too myself. I've tried in the past just to skip steps. Yeah, it doesn't work. You
No.
literally have to go through everything you just said in order to get to the healing stage. And then when you get to the healing stage, in my case, I become addicted to it because I'm like, I love the other side of it. It's like when you can release all that stuff and let it go. That's where I'm like,
Yes.
and I've asked other people, I'm like, is it okay to have an addiction to healing? And they're like, yes, that's a good, healthy addiction to have. That's fine. Because I'm like, I'll stick to that addiction. I don't have any other addictions otherwise, other than like sugar. But I mean, like, who doesn't? But I mean, like,
Yes.
it's that healing. There's a lot to be said for healing. I don't know if you noticed that within your own life, like when you went from the stage, like from the first stage to like the
Yes.
healing stage. That it's more like the healing stage. At least for me and the people that I've seen, is that it's like that healing. It's like there's nothing greater in this world that you can really experience. I'm like, I've had children in that, but I'm like, it's like that healing is just, there's really no words for it that explains like how good that feels. I don't know if you've noticed that,
Yes, yes, absolutely.
yourself.
Of course I did. That's why I actually wrapped really nicely into a 12 weeks program, this 360-degree life makeover, because I think people really need to reconnect with all parts of themselves in order to heal. And they need to regain control over their minds. They need to
Yes, they do.
enhance themselves from the inside out. Is not working from the outside. That's what's make this healing process so fantastic. And in order to get there, you need to unpack your past. There's no other way. And as you do that, you grow relationship attunement, and then you develop some precious skills, social skills, so we can engage with the others differently. You learn to be more mindful and at peace. You tap into well-being properly when you start to really take good care of yourself. And that means you practice gratitude. You learn to find your own place in the world, not follow others, and live other people's lives the way they maybe programmed you to do it. And this is when you get that clarity and direction in life. So when you get clarity and direction, why would you want to go back into darkness? Because clarity and direction are healing themselves, isn't it? You feel like
Yes.
you now have a purpose, and then you start the transformation. So addiction or not, we can play with the words the way we want, but it's magical. I think it's relevant for everyone to really start working on themselves, on their journey. I know it's scary for some people, but it's important to do it. We really need to go through healing, and in order to reach there, we need to discover ourselves first, to understand our lives, so we can grow into the people that we really want to become, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So I've appreciated this so much, Nicoletta.
Me too. I loved chatting with you, Robin. It's been fantastic.
Well, I just want to thank our audience for tuning in, whether you are watching the video or listening on the podcast. Just thank you so much for tuning into Healing for the Soul podcast. Be sure to tune in and subscribe and be able to share it with your friends and family. And thank you, Nicoletta, so much for being here again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robin, for inviting me. It's
And
been a
what's
wonderful chat.
and what's the way for people to get a hold of you? I just like people need to get in touch with you.
Yes, you can go on my website, nicoletaporojanu.com, and you will find all the links for all of the other platforms that you need. On the resources page, you can get all of these PDFs that I mentioned about. They will help you, they will guide you in life.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
great day, everyone.
You too. Bye bye.